Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer.com. Today on our 2019 Ford Ranger, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Crossbar-Style Baseplate kit. Now many of our customers are relatively new to the flat tow world and they can feel a little overwhelmed on which components to get. Now it's actually relatively simple. There's going to be 5 main components for the Ranger. You're going to need a baseplate, a diode wiring kit, a braking system, a tow bar, and safety cables. Now the reason you're going to want this baseplate kit is once it's installed, it's going to allow us to connect to a tow bar, which in turn will allow us to flat tow our Ford Ranger down the road. And that's going to be nice because that way when we're going out of town, we can flat tow our Ford and not have to worry about finding another person to drive it separately. Now compared to some of the other base plates available, this one is going to be right on par as far as the quality, construction, and appearance goes. And one of my favorite things about this is it's going to retain that factory look since our base plate will just replace our tow hooks. And I also like the fact too that we have quite a large opening here, which will make connecting and disconnecting very easy. To connect our arms, you simply push them in and spin it a quarter turn, and our pin will lock into place, and that's all there is to it. Now this base plate is going to be compatible with all quick disconnects and Roadmaster tow bars. Now if you don't have a Roadmaster tow bar, it's not a huge deal because there are adapters available that will allow the two to pair together correctly. Now our base plate does have a black powder coat finish, which will help protect it from the elements and keep it looking good. To begin our installation, we're going to come to the front of the truck. We're going to have 5 bolts along the bottom of the bumper that we're going to need to take out. To do that, we'll use a 10mm socket. Now up to the license plate frame. If your truck has one, we're going to need to remove the 2 10mm bolts on the bottom. We're going to need to remove 5 plastic pushpin style fasteners along this bottom edge. To do that, take a flathead screwdriver and kind of pry underneath the head, pop that center down, and just pull it out like that. Now in this crack between the bottom of our grill and our bumper, there's going to be 2 plastic tabs that come back from our license plate frame that kind of just rest in the bumper. We're going to need to lift those up, and that way we can completely remove our plate frame. So I'm going to grab a small flathead, just kind of pry up like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. You want to hold your license plate frame while you're doing this, that way it doesn't come flying down when we get these released. Once you pop them both out, kind of just pull it away, we'll set it off to the side. Now we can grab our lower fascia and remove it. So to do that, I started prying on the sides and working it from side to side. And there will be a few clips that's holding it in place. And just be careful when you do this. If you have to, once you peel it back a little bit, you can kind of use a flathead or a trim panel tool to kind of help work it out. You get it from side to side. And then once we pull it back, we're going to have a couple of sensors that we're going to need to disconnect. And to disconnect these, there'll be a small tab in the center. Push down on it and pull it back. I would like to point out the tabs and the fascia, that's kind of holding it in place, and I have to carefully work them out. These style of tabs are going to rest in the holders like this. Once you have the fascia off, we'll set it off to the side. On each one of our tow hooks, we're going to have these little rubber covers that we're going to have to take off. And these are really easy. Just grab them, kind of peel them down, and work it work it down a little bit and towards you, and they'll just slide right off. Once we have them off, we'll set them off to the side. Now on each side of our bumper, we're going to have 3 21mm nuts that we're going to have to remove. Now what I like to do, since these are the only things supporting our bumper, is take one of our nuts and just put it back over the stud hand tight while we work on the other side. That way when all the nuts are removed, our bumper doesn't fly off. Now before we pull our bumper off, we're going to remove our rock guard, and that way we just have a little bit more room to work. Now it's going to be held in place by 4 15mm bolts. Now if your truck has these mud flaps here in front, we're going to need to remove this bolt to separate it from the frame and the bumper. Now I'm going to use an 8mm socket to do that. Now with an extra set of hands, we can remove those hand-tight nuts. Carefully pull outward on the bumper. And up here on the driver's side, we're going to have an electrical connector that we're going to need to disconnect. Now if you grab that connector and kind of just pull down, it'll separate itself. And to remove it, push down on the center tab and separate the two. And closer to the center of the truck, we'll have another connector, and we'll use that same method to disconnect it. Push down on the center and separate them. Now we can pull the bumper away from the truck and set it off to the side. With our bumper out of the way, we can now remove our tow hooks. Now these are going to be held in place by 2 15mm bolts. We'll set these to the side and repeat the same process. Now on each side of our frame rail, there's going to be a factory hole drilled right here, real close to our bumper support. Now from the outside in, we're going to enlarge this hole to the size indicated in our instructions. The other side is going to be set up the exact same way, so just repeat that process. With both of our holes drilled, we'll come over here to the driver's side and install our bracket. Now these are side specific, and you can find a diagram in the instructions, but one way to tell right off the bat is you're going to want this tab for your safety cable to face towards the outside of the truck. What we're going to do is slide this up and over the frame. And this notch here should sit in nicely with the end of our frame. And then on the bottom side, we're going to take one of our small brackets, and this bracket is going to set like this. And then we're going to take one of the factory bolts from our tow hook, put it through the bracket, through our main bracket, and just thread it into the frame hand tight for now. Now before we put our hardware in the side of the frame, what we're going to have to do is take one of the included pipe spacers, and what we're going to do with this is we're going to put it in through the front of the frame and line up the hole in the pipe spacer with our holes here. We're going to have to hold that steady lined up and run our bolt through it. So here's where we're going to run our pipe spacer through. I found it's a little bit easier if you just grab a pair of needle nose pliers. Kind of start at the top, turn it sideways. And that'll make it a little easier to hold it in place and get everything lined up. So with our spacer lined up, we're going to take one of our large bolts and a flat washer and just feed that through. here on the inside of our frame, this is where the other end of our bolt came through. Now before we put our washers and our nut on it, I like to use a little bit of red Loctite and put it on the threads. Once we have that on there, put over a flat washer, a split lock washer, and finally a nut. And once we get it started, we'll just get it hand tight for now. Now since the other bolt is holding our bracket in place, I'm going to loosen this factory one up a little bit and put some Loctite on it. Get it back hand tight. And now keep in mind, any of the hardware that we're using to secure our base plate is going to get Loctite from here on out. Now the passenger side bracketry was set up the exact same way, so I just went ahead and repeated that same process as the driver's side to get this one installed. Now once we have both of them installed, we can tighten all the hardware down. And I'm going to use a 3/4 to tighten these bolts up here. And a 15mm for this bottom factory bolt. Now once we have them snugged down, we can use a torque wrench to torque them down to the proper specification. And you can find that torque spec in your instructions. With our base plate torqued down, if you have any other flat toe components such as a braking system or diode wiring to hook up, now would be a great time to do that since we have all this extra room to work. If not, just carry on to the next step. Now with the extra set of hands, we can put our bumper back into place. Don't forget to connect any of your electrical connectors that we unplugged. And once we line our bumper back up over the studs, just put a couple nuts on it, hand tight for now on each side. That way it stays in place while we work on getting it completely secured. Now one thing I do want to point out, if you're going to use your bracket to hold your 6-pole connector, what you would do is on the driver's side, put it on this top inside stud that our bumper sits over and re-secure it using the nut. Once your bumper's tightened down, we can grab our grill and plug our sensors in. We'll just line our tabs up and push it into place. With our grill in, we can now pop our license plate back on, the same way we took it off. Just make sure that our top tabs pop into the top of the bumper. I went ahead and held up our rock shield, which this one is a metal version, and it's just really close from not being able to bolt up flat because it's actually interfering with our base plate arm. And so what we're going to do is just mark a small area and trim it out. That way our rock guard can sit up nice and flat. Now I'm going to use a Dremel tool to make that cut and trim that out so it'll fit nice and flat. And here's what our rock guard looks like once it has been trimmed and reinstalled. And that'll do it for our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Crossbar-Style baseplate kit on our 2019 Ford Ranger.